All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We're excited to have you with us here today. So today's webinar is titled Navigating the Current Job Market and What to Expect. And now we will go on to a couple of housekeeping slides. You will likely see a GoToWebinar panel on your screen. If you want to minimize the panel, click on the orange arrow and the box will minimize. The material that we're covering is about 30 minutes or so, and at the end of our presentation, we will answer questions. So if you think of a question at any point, please type it into the question box. If you're listening via computer speakers, all you need to do is adjust the volume on your speakers to hear us. You do not need a microphone. Diversity Jobs has redesigned our new website that launched February 25th. We want you to be able to bring your authentic self to your job search by connecting with diversity-focused employers and communities that are relevant to your career goals. Access complimentary blogs, webinars, and other resources to ensure you stand out in every aspect of your job search and land your career or your dream job. Lastly, check out Courtney's 24/7 career coaching membership, which has helped hundreds of people across the U.S. land new jobs by perfecting the art of getting new jobs and advancing your career. Courtney Wandeloski is a co-founder of 3 businesses, including a national recruiting firm and a career coaching company. She started the recruiting firm pre-COVID, so she's been able to witness the dramatic shift in the landscape of the job market in the US. Navigating this job market has its share of challenges, and she has found that many job seekers are unsure of how to proceed in their search for a new position. My name is Josh Subchek, and I'm the Associate Product Marketing Manager with Circa, and I will be your moderator today. And now I will hand it over to Courtney.
Hey guys, thank you, Josh, for the introduction. I am very happy to be here today working with Diversity Jobs and having the opportunity to talk to all of you about the current job market that we're in. I have been in recruiting now for a little over 7 years, so I have seen a lot during this time, and I will say from a recruiting perspective, this is the craziest job market that I have ever seen, and it is unlike anything that I've witnessed before. And we talk to candidates all over the country for our different businesses, and it's been really interesting to hear what they are noticing. And then we work with companies across the country as well, so we see it from a lot of different angles, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to kind of share what we are seeing with everyone. So the job market since COVID has changed dramatically. When COVID first started in 2020, what we noticed was incredible losses to the job market. Companies were laying people off, people were being furloughed. We saw industries completely knocked on their heads, from the hospitality industry, restaurants, hotels, travel, supply chain, as we know, just pretty much most industries were affected in one way, shape, or form. And a lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of companies closed, and it was definitely a time of uncertainty, as I'm sure a lot of you guys experienced and remembered. And even if you didn't lose your job, I know my husband, for example, he was always worried every day, you know, what's going to happen? Is he going to lose his job? So there was that fear with a lot of people. What we have seen since then is that we are now almost at pre-pandemic levels with unemployment, and the job market is just booming for job seekers. So we are in what we call a job seekers market. So similar to the real estate industry and the housing market, you could have a buyer's market, you could have a seller's market. The same thing is happening right now in the job market, and it's a job seekers market. So as a candidate, this means things are going to be in your favor a lot of the time. So you're going to have more options, you're going to have more negotiating power. You are going to see things happening a little differently, especially if you haven't been on the job market in a few years. You might be surprised with how things are going. So what is also really interesting right now is that unemployment is around 3.6%, which is pretty low. At one point, I forget which state it was, but I think it was Nevada. Nevada had like between a 20 and 25% unemployment rate in the height of COVID. So the fact that the national unemployment rate is 3.6% is really good for unemployment. But there's a big but here. There are about 11 million open jobs across the US. So this means that with unemployment being so low and millions of open jobs, companies are really struggling. Companies are having a really tough time finding people. Turnover is higher with most companies than it has been before. Retention is not great. So there is now a huge opportunity for job seekers. So I have been telling people everywhere on my TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, in person, wherever people will listen to me, that if you had been considering looking for a new role, now is definitely the time. Even if you just wanted to put some feelers out there, now is definitely a good time to look, because there are so many opportunities. Let's see, let me move to the next. Here we go. So there have been some major shifts in the job market that have had an impact on workers. So pre-COVID, remote work was pretty minimal for most people. Right now, a recent study showed that 45% of full-time US workers are doing so remotely. Now, that is definitely a mix of some people doing hybrid and some people doing full remote, but we're seeing a lot of people working remote. For job requirements, there is so much more flexibility in requirements, including education and experience. Like I mentioned, there are 11 million open jobs, only a 3.6% unemployment rate. So companies have had to kind of be a little bit more open. Salary increases. So 24% of businesses either have increased pay or given out bonuses since COVID. I will say that, like I mentioned, I've been in recruiting for a really long time, and I had never seen sign-on bonuses at the rate that we're seeing them now. So it's a very advantageous for workers. Virtual interviewing. Most companies have moved at least part of the interview process to video calls. Pre-COVID, I would say that most of our clients did in-person interviews for everything. Even for the first step interview, they would just say, hey, just bring them in, let's do it all in person. And now we're seeing at least one interview in the process is video, if not all of them. And then quick turnaround. A lot of businesses are doing one and done interviews because they need people desperately. So of course, there are exceptions to all of these things. Obviously, there are some companies that have not changed that much since COVID or have changed minimally, but these are kind of the trends that we are noticing. We work in about 35 states across the country, and so we have a lot of, different clients ranging in different sizes, and these are kind of some of the main things that we are noticing in the marketplace right now. Okay, here we go. Whoops. Here we go. All right. a job seekers market. So prior to COVID, we were in an employer's market. So employers had a lot of the control when it came to the hiring process and had an abundance of potential hires. So it was really, as a recruiting firm, a lot easier for us. We could call 10 people, all 10 would answer, 5 of them would be a fit for the position, 3 would get interviews, and 1 would get hired. That was kind of how the process worked. Now, I would say our recruiters probably, man, they could reach out to 100 people for one position, and maybe 3 to 5 of them will get back. And that's because we are in a job seekers market. Job seekers have more control. Job seekers can demand higher salaries. They can negotiate better schedules and benefits. We're seeing job seekers have multiple offers now where they can negotiate back and forth and really pick the one that best fits. And really, there are more open positions and there are people to fill them. So job seekers are definitely in control right now. And our recruiting firm works in the behavioral health space. Our career coaching, we work with people in various industries, but for our recruiting firm, what we've noticed is this industry, the candidates that we're working with haven't been used to being reached out to by recruiters as much as they are right now because they're in such high demand. And we're seeing that across a lot of different industries. So tech is always an industry that's booming. It was booming before COVID, it's booming after COVID, booming during COVID. You know, tech roles are very highly competitive and tech candidates have always been, you know, competitive. But what we're seeing now is different industries being just as competitive as tech, which as a job seeker is really, really cool and exciting. And we work with a lot of therapists and counselors. We're seeing therapists and counselors able to demand higher salaries, demand sign-on bonuses and retention bonuses, and have, you know, 3 offers to choose from, which is just really cool. As a candidate advocate, which I like to believe I am, it is really neat to see the power back in the job seeker and noticing that people have options now. And it's a really good feeling to know that you have options. So I think that is one thing that I really just want to kind of hone in on, and a message that I hope you guys take away from this is that you guys do have options. There are so many opportunities out there. So a big topic, everyone's favorite topic, remote hybrid work. So before COVID, only 6% of the workforce primarily worked from home. Like I mentioned earlier, now it's almost at 50%. That's a lot of people working from home. I don't think I could really grasp what that meant. And I don't know if we ever will be able to, just how we shifted so much and how our day-to-days changed so much. But 50% of workers, that's a lot of people sitting at home in home offices. And we are still kind of waiting to see how companies are going to handle remote work. And obviously COVID, I don't want to say we're even post-COVID. COVID is still happening, we know that. But I feel like a lot of companies are trying to figure out what they are doing now when it comes to remote work or hybrid work. Are they going to bring people back to the office? Are they going to allow for more hybrid schedules? What is really going to happen? And I think we've seen it play out. Goldman Sachs demanded all of their workers come back full time, and I forget how many it was, but it was a large percentage of them that just said, no, we're not, and they just didn't come back. So companies are catching some heat. Companies that aren't open to flexibility with work are definitely going to face some challenges. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I will say a lot of the major tech companies have been moving to more of a hybrid schedule, and a lot of what I have read from industry professionals and kind of Economic strategists have said that the hybrid schedule is what's probably going to reign supreme. So like a 3-2, 3 days in the office, 2 days from home, or vice versa. I think that is probably what is going to be the winner. When we look back at this, they say that's kind of the optimal way for people to work, is to still have some in-person interactions, but then be able to go home a few days and get stuff done at home too. So before COVID, it was kind of considered taboo to talk about working remotely. If it was brought up on an interview, interviewers and hiring managers didn't really like that. So now it is not considered taboo. So when you are really thinking about your dream job, and this is something I suggest everyone to do at the very beginning of their job search, it's really pre-job search, is to really brainstorm what you want in a new role. Think about what you like, what you don't like, all of that, and then put it all down on paper, and from there start your search. So if a remote or hybrid schedule is something that is very important to you, discuss it on an interview, discuss it before an offer is even made, so that way you know if it's a role that you're interested in pursuing, or do you want to keep looking. Like I'm going to say throughout this presentation, 11 million open jobs, lots of opportunities. So if remote or hybrid work is a sticking point for you, be sure to discuss it upfront during an interview, especially I would say during like a pre-screen or the first interview. And then if it doesn't meet your needs, then I would say to keep looking. Also, one of the big things is that you need to think about the type of job you want. So I hear a lot of people say that they want remote work and they just want a work from home job. And I really want to kind of drive home that remote work is not a type of job. It's essentially just the location of where your work is being performed. So if you're working with a recruiter or career coach, or even just on your own, don't think about work from home as a job title or a skill or even a category. You still want to think about the industry, the field, and the actual job at hand before just applying to any work from home jobs. So work from home could be your biggest motivating factor, but if you just apply to every single remote job that you see online, you're probably going to be spinning your wheels and applying to a lot. One, remote work is very competitive because a lot of people want to work remotely. And two, you still have to have the skills or the experience or the education to perform the job at hand. So I don't want to see any of you guys just spending all of your time and resources applying to all of these different work from home jobs if they're kind of outside of your scope. So still really think about what type of job you want. And I think this goes without saying, but also remember that remote work doesn't guarantee you'll love the job. So you still want to do your due diligence with interviewing, researching the company, making sure you notice any red flags, because you can still have a boss that's micromanaging. You can still have, work for a company that is unethical and unsupportive. All of those things can still be true working remotely. So still make sure you are taking your time to ensure it's a job you're going to be happy in. So job requirements. So like I mentioned, lots of jobs, very low unemployment. So companies have been very desperate at times. They have lessened requirements or have been more open to training new workers. So we are still seeing a ton of job postings where companies are asking for, it's an entry-level role, but they want 3 years of experience. You're like, how does that work? How is it entry-level but requires all this experience? So we are still seeing things like that, but we're also seeing companies open to recent grads, open to on-the-job training, open to providing opportunities for certifications and licenses. So I think we are shifting to that now. Resume gaps are also not seen in such a negative light as they used to be. So what we know is that millions of people were laid off or had to leave their positions due to COVID. So people were laid off, they were furloughed, but there were a lot of working moms were significantly impacted at a much higher level than other members of the workforce because of childcare in schools. And we have seen so many working moms just now starting to re-enter the workforce because childcare is back, schools are back, and it was actually really devastating to see in our field in behavioral health care. A lot of, it's definitely a women-dominated field in terms of, therapists and counselors and even nurses. And it was really sad to hear a lot of them not being able to work because they had no options for their children. So a lot of people have gaps now on their resumes, more so than ever before. And companies used to be really weird about resume gaps. And there have been so many articles, so many different stats now about how companies are not nearly as concerned with gaps. Now, you still may be asked, they still may inquire like, oh, hey, I noticed, you took off the last year, whatever, but we're not seeing it be prohibited for people trying to find new jobs. And I think what has happened too is there's this human factor now. We have all gone through a lot in the last couple of years. And I would say the level of empathy from with a lot of hiring managers has increased because we all know we're just people trying to do the best we can, and people have resume gaps. They take time off to care for a sick family member or to care for their children or because they just need a break for their mental health, and companies have been way more just compassionate around that. Salary increases. So I would say this is probably more so everyone's favorite than remote work, but wages and salaries have gone up at about a 4.5% rate in the last year alone, and they do not show signs of slowing down. So to put in perspective, we work with a lot of therapists and counselors. Pre-COVID, we were working with master's level therapists and they were around $50,000, $55,000 a year. Now they're around $65,000 to $75,000 in terms of what they are looking for. So that's just in our industry, but I know industries across the board have seen significant salary increases. Also, like I mentioned, sign-on bonuses and retention bonuses. I think when people talk about negotiating, we automatically think about base salary, which is obviously the optimal thing to negotiate, right? Because your base salary, you get that paid, every week, month, year, whatever. Sign-on bonuses and retention bonuses are a one-time thing, but they're usually easier to negotiate than a base salary because they are just paid once. So even if a company is offering you a salary that you're happy with, it doesn't hurt to see if they do sign-on bonuses or retention bonuses, especially if you say you're actively interviewing and you have multiple offers. We have clients that are giving up to $15,000 sign-on bonuses, which is huge. Like I mentioned, I've been in recruiting 7 years. We did not see sign-on bonuses like this. So we're seeing sign-on bonuses across lots of different industries, government, retail, healthcare, hospitality. We are seeing companies just handing out the dollars because they need workers. So it's a big thing to negotiate. I don't think I did a slide here on negotiating, but other things to negotiate: PTO, cell phone allowances, car allowances, other sort of benefits, things like that. But feel free to, you can also ask questions about that at the end. Virtual interviewing. So like I mentioned, since COVID, all of our clients are conducting at least one interview virtually, if not all of their interviews. So the first interview is usually always done virtually with our clients now, and some of them only do virtual interviews. They don't ever bring the person in to do an in-person, which is interesting. So this means that the process can be more flexible, as you can take the interview from anywhere. You could take it in your office, you could take it in your car, you could, if you're on vacation and you really want to do an interview, you could take an interview virtually, but you still want to make sure that you are prepared. So download the hosting platform beforehand, make sure that your internet is working, log on at least 5 minutes early to ensure there are no connectivity issues, and try to limit distractions and disturbances as best as you can. Again, I think that there's a level of compassion and empathy that wasn't there a couple years ago. So if your dog's barking or if your kid is crying, most hiring managers get it. And I think it creates this kind of human aspect to the whole process, which we lose when we do virtual interviews. And I think that kind of contributes to, there's this increase in ghosting between candidates and companies and candidates. We're seeing more candidates ghost after signing offers. We're seeing more companies ghost after extending offers, which is very weird. And I think a lot of that has to do with things are just so casual now. We're not seeing people in person. We're not, meeting with them multiple times in person. So don't worry too much if, like I said, your kid's crying, dog's barking. Sometimes my cat jumps up on the desk and wants to say hi. So we still want to make sure that we are prepared and that it's not confused for being an informal interview. It's still a formal interview. You want to, at least from the waist up, be dressed appropriately. So be focused, still try to make eye contact. I know that can be weird, but don't be looking around the room or pulling up emails on the side. But it is okay to take notes. Have a notepad. I actually did an interview today with a salesperson, and she was like, hey, yep, I'm just taking some notes. And take notes, have your notepad out. It is totally okay to take notes. I think it's actually really smart to do. I think more people need to take notes on interviews, but you still want to make sure you're engaged and not getting distracted with all of your different tabs or whatever else. And then a quick turnaround. Like I mentioned, there are so many positions across the country. I'm sure you guys are tired of me saying that, but there are. So companies are trying to find strategic ways to get employees in the door. And one way to do that is for them to hire quick, because they know the longer it takes, the more chance that person is going to have other interviews and therefore other offers. And next thing you know, companies are in a bidding war. So we have noticed an increase in what we call one and done interviews. This means one interview and then they get a job offer. So as opposed to a 2, 3, 4 step interview process, so many of our clients are just doing a one interview and saying, okay, great, let's make them an offer. Now, job seekers can feel a little rushed by this. So it's always best to ask about the interview process ahead of time. So whether you're working with recruiting or the hiring manager directly or HR, always ask, what does the interview process look like, so you can know, is it going to be multi-step? Is it going to be a one-step interview? And if it is a one-step interview, make sure you're able to ask all of your questions during that one interview, so that way you feel like you got the right information. But if you didn't know it was a one-step interview and you weren't able to ask all of your questions, do not hesitate to reach out to the company or recruiter afterwards and either ask in an email your questions or ask to schedule, an additional 10-15-minute call to go over a few things. So you don't want to feel rushed, or you don't want to feel like you're making an uneducated decision. So if you're not able to ask all of your questions in the one interview, like I said, definitely schedule something afterwards. And I guess that was the last one, guys. I talk really quick, so I hope you were able to keep up with everything, but I'm pretty sure this will be going out to all of you guys, so you guys can circle back and check on anything I said.
All right, so then thank you so much, Courtney. I just want to say that firstly, and I do want to throw out that I'm going to be relaying some questions to Courtney. So if you guys would like to put some in the question box, I will give everyone a little bit of time, and then I can pick some from there, and then Courtney then can answer for you.
Yes, I would love to ask or to answer any questions you guys have. And like I mentioned earlier, we do have a career coaching company, and one of our flagship products is our 24/7 career coaching membership. It is really wonderful. It is access 24/7 to access to all of our trainings, worksheets, templates. You have the ability to ask us any question at any time, and we will respond back with a personalized answer. So if it's someone reached out to us this week about a specific cover letter question, very specific to what they are looking to do. And then we really want it to be an immersive experience. So you have access on your phone, on your laptop, on your tablet. So if you are working on your resume at 8 o'clock at night, log on to the career coaching platform. If you're getting ready to walk in for an interview and you need some quick interview tips again, you can watch the videos right on your phone. If you are going in to talk about a promotion with your company and want to make sure you're feeling confident, go right on your phone. So again, it really is 24/7 career coaching, access to myself and my business partner, Laura. We've been doing this for a long time. We climbed the corporate ladder. We started 3 businesses. So we have a lot of different insight from a lot of different angles when it comes to careers, advancement, and just really empowering people to have the best careers they can.
All right, so I do have some questions here then. I will start from the top here. How do companies negotiate PTO, etc., when that is normally a policy?
Yeah, so that's a great question. PTO is typically a policy through HR, but believe it or not, it is something that can very much be negotiated. Now, there are companies who say, no, absolutely not. We cannot negotiate PTO whatsoever, but we work with a lot of clients who do, and it's really just a matter of asking. So say if they're offering you an additional 2 weeks and you're currently getting 3 weeks of PTO, going back and saying, hey, thanks, this offer sounds great. I am really interested. However, I'm currently receiving 3 weeks of PTO. I know that your policy starts at 2 weeks. Is there any way that I could get the additional week, since that is what I currently have? And HR usually has to sign off on it, or leadership has to sign off on it, but I feel like PTO it's not like medical benefits, which medical benefits and things like that usually can't be negotiated. It's just, they are what they are. But PTO is one of those sneaky things that people think is a set policy, but often has some wiggle room to it.
All right, so if it is a job seeker market, one and done interviews, quick offers, how important is a detailed, well-presented resume?
Great question. So yes, it's still really important to have a well thought out resume, because what we're seeing is, even though it is a job seekers market, there are still some positions that are very competitive, companies that are really competitive, roles that are just highly coveted, and you want to put your best foot forward. And the resume is there to do that. So the resume is just there to get your foot in the door for an interview. So I'm a big believer in LinkedIn as well. So having an optimized LinkedIn and resume with keywords, metrics, achievements, accomplishments, so that way recruiters or hiring managers, when they see your resume, still want to bring you in, because it is still, we still work with job seekers who are struggling to find new positions. So you still want to put your best foot forward.
Perfect. And then I will go to this one. What are the new norms for a resume if someone has been out of the workforce for a decade or longer?
Yeah, another great question. So if you've been out of the workforce for a decade or longer, I think a cover letter is a great addition to your resume, and you can kind of resumes are very much, I call them flat documents. There's not a lot of context to them. So you read the information and you don't really know why you're reading, why the why behind any of this. So a cover letter can provide that why. So I think in terms of your resume, still have your education, any volunteer experience, any professional experience you did have, and then with your cover letter, you can kind of go into what you've been doing over the last 10 years, what you're looking to do, how you want to make that transition. And then LinkedIn has a new feature. So when you're looking at your experience on LinkedIn and adding you can add like career breaks into your LinkedIn as well. But definitely with your resumes, still put together your normal resume and then just add a cover letter to it.
All right, well, I will end it there with questions, but I do want to lastly say there's a couple in here. People are wondering how exactly they can access your career coaching membership. And as you answer that, I'm going to put a poll out here to see if anyone would be interested. Here we go. And hearing more.
Perfect. Yes. So the career coaching membership, I forgot to mention this too. It's $34.99 a month, and it's month to month. You can cancel anytime. But like I mentioned, it's 24 access to all of our trainings, asking us questions, all of that. And booking one-on-one calls is very expensive. It's about $200 an hour. So this has access. It's pretty much access to us and all of our stuff anytime you need it for $34.99 a month. So it's a pretty good deal. And we have a website. It is LaurCorVirtual.com. So LaurCor virtual.com. And the name should also be in the slides, or you can find me on LinkedIn and I can send you the link as well. But yes, if you go to LaurCorVirtual.com, you can find all of our services, all of our offerings. And then if you want to find me on TikTok or LinkedIn or wherever else online, I can always give you more information as well.
Perfect. So then,
oh yeah, there it is, LaurCor Virtual. So Google that and
yeah,
come up.
All right. So then I do want to thank you again, Courtney. I really do appreciate you doing this for or with Diversity Jobs. And I want to thank everyone that took the time to join us today. And then I also do want to mention that our next webinar is going to be May 18th at 12 p.m. Central Time. And that will be with Portia Parker Griffin on the topic of standing out during your career change. And again, make sure you check out the website. We did just relaunch in February. And be sure to check out the survey questions at the very end. Thanks again, everybody. And thank you so much again, Courtney.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks everyone for watching.